This episode is for all of you functional and integrative practitioners looking to clarify and create a defined method for your patients and clients. You see, when we dive into the complex world of functional and integrative medicine, it can feel overwhelming. And the best asset you have is designing your own unique method that you will bestow to your patients. So this episode is where it's at. I'll go through 6 steps, and by the end, you will have clarity and you will be able to deliver a unique method that excites your patients and creates better outcomes and allows you to rest and enjoy the practice of medicine. Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Salyer, a former burned out physician turned mentor coach for overworked health professionals looking to catalyze their inner spark and spirit. I believe in a world where doctors flourish inside and outside the exam room. So if you're looking to step into your highest creative power and transform your practice, this channel is for you. Hit subscribe, and together we'll color outside the lines to paint your work-life masterpiece. Let's start with a story, as always. For all of you moms out there, do you remember the very, very, very first time you were pregnant? Okay, we're talking like rubber hits the road. You're creating this little tiny human inside your body. And naturally, we worry about the steps ahead, even if you're a physician. I remember being a resident and so excited to start building our family. When I was pregnant with our firstborn, it was an exciting time, but also scary, even though we knew all about embryology and histology and gynecology and obstetrics. Sometimes it makes you scramble your brain. It's that curse of expert knowledge where you think, well, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen next. So if you were like me, you probably bought way too many books like What to Expect When You're Expecting or The Girlfriend's Guide to Pregnancy. And all of these were great because what did they do? They calmed my anxious new mom brain. They showed me stories of other people's journeys through pregnancy and motherhood. They allowed me to find that community of others that have walked that path before me, even though centuries. I mean, since the beginning of time, women have been birthing babies. But for some reason, when it's your body, it feels so different and isolating. And that's why roadmaps and guidebooks are so popular. And that's why the shelves of self-help books in Barnes & Noble will always be stuffed. We want to know what to expect. We're curious about the human condition. We also get a lot of solace and comfort from listening to other people's stories, even if they don't match our own. We are an endlessly curious species. So I always love anytime I'm in a change in life and there's a guidebook, right? Now I'm in perimenopause. After motherhood comes, all sorts of different things, puberty for your teens. And you start to embrace all these different hats of being a mom. And it's helpful to see how others have navigated this. So imagine being a patient in your clinic. You might have a clear idea of the way you do things or the kinds of assessments that you like to perform. Maybe you have a block of favorite tests that you like to run. And it's all here. The problem is when it's all kept in your brain and you're not putting it out on paper, your patients have to blindly trust that you're going to lead them in the direction of health. Of course you are. You know this. But your patients are still blindly trusting, and that requires a lot of faith. Sometimes our patients end up in our offices after they've been dismissed by multiple practitioners. So trust can be hard to come by. And it can take a lot of energy for them to walk in or show up on Zoom and feel that they're in good hands when they've been dismissed or devalued for much of their life, especially if they have chronic symptoms, which is the most common reason people seek out functional or integrative medicine. What is your secret superpower energy source? I have 2, a morning cup of coffee and the energy I get from connecting with practitioners just like you. Since 2019, I've had the deep honor of working with practitioners all across the world and help them express their own unique healing style to transform patient lives without burnout. And I've put a lot of free resources in an online hub just for you. Head to drlaurasalyer.com/catalyst and download some of my freebies like the Catalyst Calendar Method, which will teach you how to put more flow in your week, or the Functional Micro Practice Checklist so you can compare your journey to where you may want to go. And my favorite, the Catalyst Archetype Quiz. It will match you to one of 4 personas, and you'll learn what is your best creative expression and also where are you most likely to drop into burnout. Knowledge is power and awareness is curative. But most of all, connect with me. Give me that superpower energy source and we can grab coffee at the same time. I leave spots in my calendar open, a few every week just for you. And if you use the coupon podcast, you can waive the fee for these brainstorming sessions. So let's get online, let's share a cup of coffee and book your appointment for free with the coupon code podcast. Go to drlaurasalyer.com/catalyst, and I can't wait to chat with you online. Let's create some magic. Imagine if they had a roadmap, right? What to expect when you're in my clinic. Now, just like that book that I read from cover to cover on what to expect when you're expecting, I knew that my story would be a variation of that. And sometimes life hands you things that you weren't expecting because that's life. Life is full of twists and turns you can never anticipate. But at least hearing versions of a story helped me understand some variations of what could happen. And it felt comforting. So today's episode is about helping you devise a 6-step method so that you can deliver this to your patient at the first touch point. And they can feel comfortable and assured and safe in your care, thinking, wow, this practitioner has already thought out these steps. Even if they don't pertain, you can devise a method that is uniquely yours, and it helps the patient understand where you're starting from and where to go. You may want to get a piece of paper if you're listening to this podcast or if you're watching it on YouTube. Hi, I love being there in your office or maybe in your laundry room. Maybe I'm on a walk with you. I'm just so excited that you're spending time with me. That is the highest compliment. The currency of time is all we have. So thank you so much for listening. Do you have a paper yet? If you don't have a paper, grab your notes app on your phone. Get ready to use those thumbs because we're going to go through those 6 steps and you're probably going to have some epiphanies kind of bubble up, especially if you're on a walk, because that is a great flow channeled activity, that bilateral activity. You might notice some of the alpha brain waves giving you some epiphanies. And this is all about you. So even if you're a veteran, you're going to come up with some new ideas. Very first touch point that a patient will come in contact with you, the discovery call. Now, if you're listening and you're thinking, but I don't even do discovery calls, or I have a staff member do discovery calls, let's, for the purpose of this exercise, imagine it is you. You are the face of your business. You are the embodiment of the healing modalities that you are going to use for your patients. So the discovery call is a very underutilized method that has such potent power. The discovery call gives that patient an energetic connection to you. And sometimes that's wordless. It can be just the feeling they get across the Zoom room or on the phone or in your office. No matter how you do the discovery calls, it gives them this assurance that you are their next guide. So think about the purpose of your discovery call. How do you run them now? Is it simply, oh, here's how much it costs. Here's our staff. This is the timeline of visits. That's fine. It can be somewhat of a soft orientation process, or you may consider the purpose being a little deeper. Something like understanding their goals, understanding what they're hoping to accomplish, but most importantly, seeing if they're a good fit for your method, your modalities. Seeing that they actually have symptoms that you could help them with and giving them a chance to feel seen and heard. So remember, many of these patients have felt dismissed, and this is their first opportunity to feel like they are in your presence and they have a chance to get your guidebook, to get your what to expect when you're healing book. And this is the best time that you can really set the stage for your entire culture. This is something we talk about all the time in Catalyst Studio, is setting your Catalyst culture, which is one of mutual respect, boundaries, of positivity, of energetic support in their healing process, and helping you devise your own unique healing style. So that discovery call on average lasts anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, and every practitioner is different. You may want to use the phone, you may want to use Zoom or have them come into your office. But think about ways that you can pre-educate during that discovery call. And this is something you may want to type out, right? What are some optional ways that you could get them ready for that discovery call? In the modern era, we're sending reminder emails, we're sending text reminders. So could you use that real estate to plop in a little link? Here's an orientation tour of behind the scenes in our office, or here's what you can expect in our discovery call, or meet our favorite staff of the week. Think about how can you create this safe, warm feeling as you're onboarding them into your method? How can you describe your values with words and with pictures? So this discovery call doesn't have to be the very first touch point. You can actually use these reminder emails or texts to give little glimpses into this wonderful world they can expect. And then when you're on the discovery call, think of 3 things you need to have answered. For me, it is, are they a good fit? What kind of goals are they hoping to achieve? And is it realistic, right? We can't cure everything. We can't do it overnight. So do they have the right mindset for this work? And then finally, how excited are we to begin this process? I need this energetic yes. So this discovery call is great because it can answer high-level questions. They can ask about functional medicine. You can start to give them that glimpse of the roadmap that you are creating today. And then you're helping them see those next steps. You're helping them visualize how they can live a different future. The idea of a discovery call is aspirational and inspirational. You want them to feel hope. As you're concluding that discovery call, how do you explain the next steps in your roadmap? Do you tell them that a staff member will call them to schedule their first appointment? Do you make it very clear on where they should go next? Oftentimes practitioners don't, and that creates uncertainty. Remember, you want them to easily flip the page of that book, that guidebook. You want them to know exactly what's happening next. So tell them about that. And sometimes maybe they're not thinking or hearing you, so put it in a follow-up email as a courtesy. You're going to get this email 24 hours later. Don't forget, here's your next 3 steps to get started. Book your first appointment here or fill out this intake, but make it crystal clear so that they don't feel uncertain. Nothing says you're not welcome here than having to call and say, I don't understand where to go next. And that's a constant thing we're always working on. I can say this even after 8 years. I'm still finding loops in the system where I go, wow, I could be even more clear here. Okay, so that's step 1 of your roadmap, your unique discovery call method. When you have that outlined, talk about it with your staff and your assistants and see if they come up with other things to add or take away. And galvanize that discovery call as that first start here flag in your roadmap. Now, let's talk about step 2. I call this the initial visit. I've also called it a case review or 360-degree assessment. There's so many words you could say, foundational assessment, but I like to think of this separately from my membership, this first deep dive. What do you like to have in that assessment? I'll tell you what I like to envision this. I envision this almost like a second stage of a discovery call, but with action steps. So I'm getting to learn about them even deeper. They've completed my long intake questionnaire. I'm learning about what parts of the IFM matrix that they're struggling with, but I'm also pulling in other modalities I like to use, flow neuroscience, polyvagal theory. I'm looking at trauma-informed questions I could ask. I'm looking at how is their physiology different. So I'm devising this assessment, right? And that means I'm asking them for information ahead of time, as I'm sure everybody is that's listening to this. If you're in medicine, that's part of the medical assessment is getting their story ahead of time so you can get your mind going and take notes and pre-chart. You're looking at their lifestyle, their nutrition. In your initial visit, what are you going to promise them? This is something we don't think of. We offhandedly might say, well, I will tell them what they need to do next. But really, when you're giving them a guidebook, if you're giving them a roadmap, you need to clearly outline the containers of that initial visit. Otherwise, you're leaving yourself open to lots of boundary work afterwards. You want to make it clear, is this something that stands alone? And these are all opinions because every practitioner in my Catalyst studio does things differently. This is all about how do you want to build your Lego castle, right? So when you look at this initial visit, typically it's between 60 to 90 minutes. You're going through their case. You're doing a history review. You're asking clarifying questions. You then give them your initial thoughts. And you say, this is what I think might be going on. This is where I think we should concentrate first. And here are your next steps. That's how my initial visit goes. I don't include testing. That can be a decision you can make. But I like to use that initial visit as a smart way to really dive deep and unravel some of these things that have been going on, looking at their past labs that they've had, giving them a second opinion, really knitting together the next steps for food, lifestyle, supplement. And I make it very clear that this is a standalone visit, that this is something they can take with them and they can fly if they want. Most of the time, though, 95% of the time, they know that there's a lot more to functional medicine. I mean, if it was as easy as eat this many vegetables and exercise more, we would all be fine. So a lot of times it's, let's see how well this helps your body. And let's meet again in a month and choose the best test for you. So I outline this in the visit summary that this is your initial visit. We've delivered on these things that we promised. This is what you're going to expect. And I give them a timeline. You have like 30 days to see how you're doing. And here are the next steps to join my membership. And again, if you're listening and you're thinking, I don't even have a membership, that's okay. This roadmap that you're devising right now, whether you're typing it in your phone, you're writing it out, still can apply. Because in your initial visit, you can say, these are the expectations for follow-up. For me, it is join 1, 2, or 3 levels of membership. And I choose them based on MSQ score or most likely to fit and support their goals. So that initial assessment is key because you're anchoring their goals. You're realistically delivering your opinions on where the next step should be. Okay. So write down some epiphanies. Is there a checklist process you would like to have? Can your staff help you find these commonalities that you do in your initial visit? Maybe there's things you didn't even notice that you do. Like you always, give them a recommendation of a favorite book, right? Maybe you're a hormone practitioner and you just happen to always reference certain books. Well, maybe that can be part of your welcome kit, right? Ask your staff to be that detective for you and look at your blind spots. There's a lot of things that you probably do over and over again that can become part of this wonderful first initial visit for a patient. Maybe it's a list of favorite local businesses. There's all these things you can package into it like a welcome kit. I like to put my favorite teas, my favorite electrolyte powder mixes. I give them a book and a vitamin supplement container. I'd like to make that initial visit feel like they're coming home, like they're well supported. But if they decide that's enough and all they needed was someone to listen to them and they made a few dietary changes and they got better, that's great. But I'm still here. Okay, so that was step 2. Let's go to step 3, which I like to call like an assessment phase, right? So you may call it something different. For me, my assessment phase means they have to be in a membership, because in my services, I found membership to be the best way to support their constant change, their roadblocks that happen or anything that happens. They know they're in a membership, so they know they can find me. And the barrier to making an appointment is dropped away to zero. So there's virtually actually no shows. So this step 3 of assessment phase, what I mean by that is, how do you like to see them after that first visit? What is your most likely tools of assessment? Do you typically have a set of tests that you rely on? Like, are you somebody who generally reaches for the organic acid test, or maybe a dried urine hormone assessment or blood spot? Do you tend to attract a lot of patients that are looking for specific workups? Could you create your own bank of tests that you tend to rely on first? And maybe that is your signature assessment. Could you devise your own bucket system, right? I know we are trained in many different ways. IFM, SAFM, there's a lot of functional medicine training academies, and they all have their own take on very similar things, a matrix or a timeline. But can you go one step further and say, here's how I envision health? I have 3 buckets, right? Maybe it's gut, hormone, and brain, or it could be a lot of different things. Maybe you're a sports expert and you really love taking care of athletes, right? So maybe you devise them in different ages for your bucket list, right? There's a lot of ways that you can create your own assessment, your own scale, and name it. This is where ChatGPT is great. So this step 3 is developing your own unique assessment that you like to do for patients. For me, I have different buckets of where they live, right? Like if somebody is more of a hormonal patient, I kind of put them in that bucket. I explain to them, we're looking at this as an assessment for most of your symptoms. So we heal your gut first, see how far that gets. And then let's consider a Dutch or ZRT lab test. Or they go into a gut bucket, right? They're there mostly for GI concerns. So we talk about preparing them as best as we can. And then if the symptoms are still there, my assessment will be a stool test of some kind. Or they could be in my 3rd bucket, which I like to call like a energy, brain, mitochondria bucket. And we talk more about how can we optimize those micronutrients, the mitochondria, the gut-brain connection. So being more vocal about your assessment and your buckets can be uniquely yours. And have fun with the naming system. Be creative. But find that assessment phase that feels really solid. And again, rely on your staff. Ask them, what do you notice that I do repeatedly over and over? And maybe you can galvanize that into your signature roadmap on your assessment phase. So when you create that assessment, think about a flow chart. If you're more of a visual person, think about how would you devise a flow chart based on different patient types. And maybe that can help you unlock areas of your brain where you're thinking, yep, okay, that makes sense. I like to do these assessments on these kinds of symptoms and patient diagnoses. Okay, we're moving on. Step 4. This is the treatment, the healing phase. And this is about, where do you support them? We can't make tiny little changes and expect that suddenly their switch has been flipped, they're better at the next visit, and then they continue to stepwise up the ladder and they're getting better and better. That's just not how our body works. So this treatment and healing phase, I like to consider it more like a support phase. And that's why membership works for my clinic, because healing is not linear. There's times they'll have 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so what does that look like for you? In your healing and treatment phases, what do you offer as a touch point of support? What could you offer? Here are some suggestions from inside our Catalyst studio from practitioners across the world with a membership practice. There are things like, expect one of our staff will call you just to check in and see how you're doing. Expect a nutritionist to book an appointment with you. They'll reach out. Or go to our Facebook group. It's private. You can ask any question you want. And our medical assistant, our nutritionist, our health coach will come and help answer your questions. It could be look at our group visit schedule. We meet once a week, twice a week, once a month. There's so many options. There are so many ways you can support their healing. And finally, the one-on-ones. Obviously, if you're in a membership, you can say you get X number of hours per month to meet with me. But there are ways that you can make this your own unique support ecosystem. Patients need to feel that kind of trust and safety. Otherwise, it's a high ticket for them to implement and execute on all the things that you give them in that visit summary. So think about all the ways that you can encourage them like a cheerleader. Maybe once a month you have your nutritionist do a store walkthrough. And maybe they can sign up and be the tag along person. Maybe it's a pantry makeover. Maybe you do a series where you're finding like, boy, seasonal affective disorder is really common at this time of year. I'm going to do a series on this. So come join our group visit. We're going to talk all about SAD. This is how you help them. This is how you help them understand. Education doesn't happen just in their exam. You're trying to provide multiple ways. Other practitioners will do like a supplement spotlight, and they'll talk about why they like reactive magnesium or why they find, activated charcoal versus zeolite clay is a binder that works for certain patient types, right? You're educating them. And don't forget to always record these educational opportunities. And you start having a library of videos that can ease your patient visits. You can educate in between the visits. This is so important as you're helping them through this healing. And finally, don't forget to ask your local businesses to come in, talk about their passion. Have a craniosacral therapist talk about why this helps with headaches. Have a somatic therapist talk about why physiology changes when you have trauma. Invite your favorite chiropractor over to talk about their unique way of treating neck or back pain. You can partner with all of these brilliant practitioners, and then it creates this amazing healing opportunity for your patients. So how do you create this treatment phase? In your roadmap, can you identify all the touch points that patients can have access to you? Even in portal messages, how many will you allow? Clarify that for the treatment phase. Do you recommend once a month follow-up, every other month? Do you want them to measure their changes with a specific tool like the MSQ, or do you want them to have a Fitbit or a Ring or Apple Watch data? Fitness wearable data can be wonderful to show change. And how often are they expected to get feedback on this? Is your position in their healing journey more of kind of the high altitude sort of roadmap pointer, a guide saying you're going to go to this next mountain, but then right here is your health coach who's going to help you with every step? Or are you doing every step with them? Look at how you would like this guidebook to look and write down your stuff right now as they're coming up. Don't forget to ask your staff too. And let's move on. Okay, step 5 is the maintenance. So let's say they've completed some treatments, they're feeling better, you've done some of your functional medicine magic, and now they're kind of in this maintenance, right? Maintenance is tricky too because we're excited to heal, but then once we feel a little better, maintenance can be sometimes a white knuckle situation. So make sure you're talking about the expectation that they will relapse. I like to talk about Prochaska and the wheel of change. I like to put in my roadmap my patient journey, which is accessible on my website. Anybody can see it, drlaurasalyer.com. I have this almost Candyland picture where patients see that as they go through my journey, there is an expectation that they may have struggles and they can come back into the system, right? But this maintenance phase is important because you're educating, you're creating this fortitude, this ability and confidence for them to continue feeling healthy because they often don't trust it, right? So if you don't have a step 5 and you don't have a maintenance, you're highly missing out on something that could make you stand above the rest of your fellow practitioners. Anticipate that this is hard for them and then fill that need. Offer them a suggestion that your roadmap is unique because you help them maintain, right? Do you offer additional education? Hot seats in the group visits? Do you offer a bank of visits with your health coach that they can use? These are opportunities to encourage patients to continue trusting their body and knowing that this maintenance guide is helpful, but things can go off track. I like to explain that group visits are the way I maintain patients. They have an open door policy. There's patients that have been long in my system and I don't really see them. And then things kind of go a little bit awry. They go dropping into my group visit. I can make a few tweaks and then they're back on the healing path again. So challenge yourself to think outside the box or color outside the lines. How can this step 5 of a maintenance plan help your patients in your clinic? And finally, step 6, graduation. Yes, graduation. I want my patients to graduate. I want them to feel so good they can fly on their own. And, that's kind of why I like membership, because I don't want patients to feel like they need me. My job as a physician is to teach them and to help, arrange the tests and the symptoms in a way that is more comfortable and allows their body to go back to that homeostasis, that healing. So when they graduate, it's an exciting time. Now, graduation can mean different things. It can mean here is your final visit summary with your maintenance supplements. And then I don't need to see you ever again, right? That's pretty harsh. I don't do that. I like to graduate them with an action plan. And this was suggested by one of my patients years ago. And I thought it was a brilliant suggestion. Also, a reminder to you, if you don't ask for feedback from your patients, you're not going to get these brilliant suggestions. But this patient was an artist and she said, what would be kind of cool is if you had an action plan that was color coded, like an asthma action plan. So it had like a green, yellow, red. And it was based on MSQ. So I knew that if I'm in the green, I would just need to stay on these supplements, follow this food, lifestyle recommendations. But if I dipped into the yellow, there was a different plan, and then red. And I thought that was beautiful. And ever since, every patient at graduation gets their own personalized action plan. It's great. They put it right on their fridge and they know exactly what to do. They know exactly when to call me. Graduation can be a celebration. Not that you're fixed forever, not that you'll never get sick again, but a celebration that you invested in yourself. So reward them. I send a t-shirt. I give them the action plan. I celebrate that they've done all of these things. I review the roadmap, the steps where they've been. Hey, remember that first visit when you had these 3 goals? Look at how far you've come. Remember when we tested your Dutch test, your GI 360 stool test. Remember what we found out there? And then we did this and now you feel like this. So do a little review, just like that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. You're on the final chapter. Look at all the places that they have walked and you've been there with them. Now, what else are you going to offer at graduation? Do you have opportunity for them to stay in your system? Perhaps a low-level membership that allows them to drop into open office hours if they need, or to access you with portal messaging? Or do you close the door and say politely that you are on your own, but if you need to contact me, here's a discount code and you can pop right back in at a lower fee for your initial visit? Yes, I did say initial visit because our bodies are constantly changing. And if a patient exits your system after a certain amount of time, an initial visit is a wise choice to start back because things change. They could have had a cancer diagnosis or a surgery that removed certain organs. And just assuming they can pop right back into your system and do a quick 30-minute follow-up isn't fair to them or their medical goals. So how do you end that journey for the patient? Do you roll out a red carpet saying, I'll leave the light on for you, but you're free to go? Make sure you identify how they can get back into your system if they need you, but also be very clear on where this road ends for them. Okay, I hope this episode has given you some ideas, very colorful ideas, but let's review. Step 1 is that discovery call. Step 2 is that initial consultation. Step 3 is that assessment phase, some testing and evaluation. Step 4 is the treatment and healing. And step 5 is the maintenance Finally, step 6 is graduation. So where of these steps have you identified areas that you could improve? Or maybe areas that you want to enhance because you already do them well? I would love to hear it. Please drop it in the comments below here on the YouTube channel or in the podcast. I read every single one, and share this with a friend. It helps others find this content, and it's my passion to make functional medicine a lifelong career of joy, of creativity, and self-expression. We all deserve to color outside the lines and create a new healthcare system that works for all of us. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to see how your roadmap helps you have fun and helps your patients get better faster.